I hereby introduce to you Mr. Michael Veazey.
Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the show. Today's show is brought to you by the amazing FBA mentoring program, and we are having a contest. Never done this before for mentoring. I really don't like to give away my time for free, which is obviously because it's very valuable. It's valuable to my clients as well as to me. So what problems is it there to solve? Well, first of all, people get business building block. It's like writer's block, only worse. It's information overload sometimes leads to it. Too many podcasts, too many Facebook groups, isolation. Uncertainty about how to proceed. It doesn't matter what it is. It tends to result in the same thing, which is procrastination. You never get round to business building. The other block is how to choose a product, a lack of structure, a lack of knowledge, or an excess of knowledge. Again, info overload, same result. People never get round to actually buying anything to sell. They never order a product. Therefore, they never get off the ground. If they start sourcing, they feel they're taking unknown risks, and they often are. So they either get blocked and never buy anything, or they buy stuff and they take unnecessary risks, or they just buy a product that hasn't got a chance. And launching on Amazon is the final place where I help a lot of people, the more advanced sellers sometimes, as well as the beginners, which is they don't understand the platform well, so they either have no plan or a poor launch plan, and the result is often that they lose a lot of money that they've spent on products, goes completely to waste because they aren't able to launch properly. So the solution is really a couple of things. First of all, clarity and structure that comes from the entire private label process, which underpins not only our course, but the whole work we do here in mentoring as well. So instead of just getting launched in one massive push, which is the traditional way of looking at it, and I'm just going to show an infographic here if you're watching on the YouTube version. Instead of one big push, which is traditionally how it works, and you spend months and months working without ever getting any feedback from the marketplace or learning your skills, and then you suddenly spend thousands in one go. That seems very unhelpful to me, and it is unhelpful, and it's proved unhelpful beyond any reasonable doubt, as they say in the court system, with lots of mentoring clients. Instead, we now run the business building algorithm, which includes lots of very, very clear processes to get through blocks and get to the right answers as simply as possible, but without missing the nuances. It's that fine line. The PAP process, for example, the PIC and the PIE, the PAP, pick and pie processes will get you to a fantastic start with a good product choice. And by the way, the clue here, I'll give you a bit of a hint there. It's about getting the people before the products. So we also get clarity and structure and from our interactions. Instead of 1,000 possibilities a week, you have 3 goals a week. Instead of isolation, you have accountability, and that leads to momentum. So my offer to you is simple. I'm going to offer a first prize of 1 full month's mentoring program, which is 4 one-hour sessions of video calls with recordings with yours truly, plus email support. That is normally £400 value, and people pay that every day or every month anyway. £400, $515. I'll also throw in a massive free bonus I'll reveal if you sign up for the contest. I haven't got time to talk about that now. So I'm going to run this until we have 40 applicants, or about 4 to 5 days, depending on which comes first. Note that mentoring is an application-only program, but right now you just need to give your name and email address, and we'll follow up with you if relevant. So just go to, if you're interested in this, amazingfba.com/contest, amazing, F for Freddy, B for Bertie, A for Alpha.com/contest, CON for November, TES for sugar, amazingfba.com/contest, and enter your name and email address, and we will take it from there. We'll follow up. And exciting times. If you've ever wanted to have some input and some help, it's very powerful. This is the cheapest you'll ever get it, because there is nothing cheaper than free, but it's valuable. So cheap is not the right word, but free doesn't mean not massively valuable. Do not underestimate the commercial value of the time that I've been charging out to people for nearly 3 years now. And if you're serious about that at all, get yourself over to amazingfba.com/contest. If you're not interested, thank you very much for your patience in listening to this impassioned plea. And now on with the show. Hi there, folks. Welcome back to the show. This is a version of Q&A Tuesday, which was a series of podcasts that we used to have, reinstating it purely because it sounds cute. I'm not necessarily going to do it every single Tuesday by any stretch, but when we've got something worthwhile to put up there, we're going to just have a quick, punchy, shortish episode that focuses on one single topic, which has been raised by a listener or follower, mostly in the Facebook group. So most of the questions, I have to say, there relate to beginner or early stage questions. So if that's you, then you'll find it very helpful. I do get in there and answer questions. It's not absolutely every day, but every sort of 3-4 days I check it and get in there and answer questions. So it's thoroughness rather than speed you'll get there, but still very helpful. AmazingFBA.com /FB. Sorry, I'm trying to put my teeth in it. Amazing. F for Freddy, B for Bertie, A for Alpha.com /F for face, B for book. You can join us there. There are about 1,350 or so people. It's not huge, but I get in there, as I say, and answer questions. Occasionally Rob will answer questions as well. Rob Sleeth, business partner and all round really smart e-commerce guy. He's now the director of e-commerce for a company. Super smart guy. So either of us can answer pretty well, I think, any questions that you come up with, or at least we can suggest ways to find the answers. If you're a more advanced seller, we're just about to kick off the 10K Facebook group, which is going to be a free group, at least to start with, for those who are doing at least 10K. We'll probably bring it down to $8,000 a month minimum. So in other words, $100,000 a year minimum turnover. Very, very interested in collecting that group together and getting more expert answers for more advanced sellers, such as the sort of thing we discuss in the 10K Collective Mastermind. But this one is for the people at the early stages. That said, I think some of the people, I'm working with a mentoring client at the moment who's doing around £10,000 a month, so $12,000, and still a lot of the basics that need to be improved, which is fine. The good news of that is some easy wins. So if you're working at a level where you're doing 10, 15, 20,000 or even more a month, but you still feel that you've got some fine tuning you can do, it may be worth exploring mentoring with me. I can help quite a lot of people these days with my knowledge and insights from just doing a lot of it. AmazingFBA.com /mentoring. Okay, so those are ways you can get in touch, get some help. Let's get into the meat and potatoes of today's show. Today's question is from Dan. And he asks, I'm going to read out his question. I know Dan a little bit, and he's a detailed chap. So this is quite a long question, or quite a long, I suppose it is a question. So I'll take a few minutes to read the question out, but I think it's important, so bear with me. So here's what Dan has to say. Hi all, I'm about to begin PPC on my listing for my first product. There's a hint there. This product is about to be launched, and I would be grateful for any comments or suggestions on the below strategy I currently have set up for PPC. So here's his strategy, right? Number one, or part one, manual campaign containing literally one exact match keyword for the niche I'm targeting. I've set this to a small budget of £3 a day to simply see if it will convert right off the bat. This is a more expensive keyword, so I'm not expecting enough volume with this budget, but it's still worth it because the product is so relevant for this keyword. I will add exact match keywords that I learned from the other two campaigns to this manual campaign to start targeting the best keywords. Okay, so there's quite a lot to take in. So typical of, I would say if you're going to get help from somebody, whether you're a mentoring client of me and sending me an email or putting it up on a Facebook group, you're way more likely to get a response if you don't overwhelm people with complexity. Although I appreciate that the small parts make add up to a whole. Anyway, I would break that question up myself. So let's break it down. So manual campaign. First thing, literally one exact match keyword. I think that's good. I think it's possibly a bit premature if it's just your first product and your first campaign launching it. Actually, it doesn't matter whether it's your first product, whether it's a new launch for a new product, I would say. Probably would be tempted to find that the sweet spot's normally between about 3 and 5 keywords. It can occasionally come down to one keyword, but I wouldn't probably just target one to start with. I would test my assumption that I know the right keyword by testing 4 or 5 seriously, maybe up to about 20. And that would also be the backbone of what I'd make my listing out of. So one thing to say, which isn't really directly brought up by this question, but which is extremely important, is one basic principle, which is that the PPC, or the campaign based on keywords, is a flip side of a listing constructed around those same keywords. So before you can do that, it's very important to have a very clear process by which you decide on the winnable keywords, or what keywords define a niche. Niche being, you can define it lots of ways. I suppose on Amazon, it's an intent or a type of buying plus a set of keywords. So I'd be tempted to test anywhere between about 3 or 4 keywords up to 20. Maybe to keep it simple, maybe 4, 5. One is a bit minimalist. So that's the first thing I would say, is that I wouldn't necessarily assume that I know that that's the right keyword. Second thing, budget. Let's talk about budget. So in my answer to this, I give a very full answer to the poor Dan, but I hope he wanted a full answer. I said,
be wary of big analysis and small action. So look, the bottom line is this: the algorithm, the Amazon algorithm, apart from getting my tongue, the Amazon algorithm is judging your product listing from day one. Right? Good ranking means it's visible. That gets you clicks if your title, main picture, price, and reviews are right. In other words, the things that you can see in the search results. And if you get through to the actual product listing, that will get you sales if your listing's right. Yeah. So it's not a guarantee. If you get ranked for certain keywords, in other words, your listing is visible in the search results, that doesn't guarantee success, but the absence of that guarantees failure. If your product is invisible, nobody can buy it. Right. And it's a self-rewarding system. Amazon rewards you for getting sales. If you get sales, you get ranked. If you get ranked, you get visible. If you get visible, you get clicks. If you get clicks, you get sales. And then it goes on, right, in a virtuous cycle. But the opposite is equally true. If you're invisible and you don't make any sales, you'll get more invisible. Amazon will punish your listing. So it's incredibly important on Amazon to be bold. It's not just an advisable thing. It's the only way because of the way Amazon set it up. Same on Google. Right? The world is going not 80-20, but 95-5, meaning that the algorithms of the world are set up to reward success with success. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying that's how it is. So there is no point in half-assing your launch, which is a classic error. So £3 a day isn't probably, unless you're in a titchy tiny market, in which case you probably shouldn't be in that market at all, it isn't going to do anything. I would bid at least £20 a day. So budget, rather, sorry, not bid. Now, the budget on Amazon PPC or Amazon ads or Amazon sponsored ads, same thing, right, is not the same as a Google AdWords or Facebook ads budget. In my experience, and it's well known as well, basically, if you put a budget, of £30 on Google AdWords or Facebook ads, you will spend that per day, right? Amazon ads do not work that way. You'll often put a budget of £50. I put budgets of £1,000 a day before and only spent about £25 or dollars. I've done the same in the USA as well. No different. Okay, so I would be more courageous with that. Be more aggressive. Otherwise, you're just guaranteeing failure, right? So that's the first thing I would say about that approach, right? Now, the second thing Dan had to say is about the next part of his rather complex campaign structure. But I mean, it's not terrible. It's just, it needs reviewing, okay? Which is why I'm reviewing it for him, here. And also, I've done that on the Facebook group as well. So the second point, the auto campaign. He wants to have an auto campaign based on a bidding strategy for new campaigns. Not even sure what that means. I am using Amazon's auto keywords and bidding at the suggested bid plus 10%. Okay, that seems quite smart to me. This will help ensure I gain impressions and gives a better chance of people finding the product at the top of the page. The budget is set to £15 a day. That all sounds quite reasonable to me, actually. I would say that if you're below the suggested bid, you are risking giving airspace or advertising space to your competition. And one of the things you have to recognize is so obvious that it shouldn't need saying, but I think it does, because again, it's more about emotional intelligence than intellectual. I know this person a little bit, Dan, and he's pretty clever in the analytical side, but I think a lot of stuff, and myself included, I can be quite analytical. I like to think I'm clever, although I probably am not being clever when I think I'm being clever. I think when I'm at my best is when I'm asking the dumbest questions. But look, when you're in a marketplace like Amazon, you pretty much have to take market share off somebody else. In other words, there's only one top position on page one for any given keyword. So if somebody else is in it, you need to take it off them. That means you need to spend money and expect them to fight back. So you do need to at least be bidding the suggested bid. And when you start off, I think you should bid pretty high as you can afford, to be honest. Because if a market's not worth having, you shouldn't be trying to get it anyway. And if it is worth having, you should get in there and steal market share as much as you can afford, preferably the number 1, 2, or the worst 3 slot. If you're going further down the page than that, you're going to be just fighting for the scraps. And that's actually harder. It's easier in the sort of day-to-day version. It's less scary because you don't have to spend so much money. But fighting for the scraps very rarely produces a profitable product. It's so clear. And the 10K Collective Mastermind, I talked about this in another podcast. We had a meeting the other day, and the people who are really got really, really profitable product lines are very dominant in their niche. They're basically dominating the top 1, 2, or 3, in some cases 2 listings out of the top 3 are theirs. And that's why it's profitable for multiple reasons, which the STAR principle explains. I'm not going to rehash that. I talked about that recently. Okay, so this all makes sense. Auto campaign based on bidding strategy for new campaigns. Don't know what that means. Bidding at the suggested bid plus 10% makes sense. Budget £15 a day. If you're being modest, yeah, that's about right. I think that's kind of the minimum that makes any meaningful sense. Now, here's the third part of Dan's suggested strategy, which I would question more. Auto campaign based on a bidding strategy for new campaigns. Don't know what that means. I'm using Amazon's auto keywords. I'm bidding at the suggested bid minus 50%. I'll be bidding less and paying less per click. Okay. However, this will probably drive down impressions and limit the amount of people who will actually see the product. This strategy should be good at targeting some specific longer tail keywords that my competition may not be targeting. The budget is set to £9 a day. £9, dude. Why that number? Why about £9.93? I mean, okay, let's analyze this. The auto campaign, auto keywords and bidding at the suggested bid minus 50%. I will be bidding less and paying less per click. However, this will probably dive down impressions and limit the amount of people who will actually see the product. I agree with everything you've said, Dan. In which case, why do you want fewer people to see your product? We're trying to launch into an aggressive competitive marketplace. And I happen to know a bit about the products he's talking about, but anything that's worth having is normally going to be competitive. There is not much point in spending thousands of dollars or pounds, as nearly always translates to dollars at some point if you're ordering from China, ordering a product in and then being cheapskate on the launch because you are guaranteeing failure. That's like buying constructing a wonderful motorboat and then putting in like a cap full of petrol. I mean, if you're going to buy the motorboat and get it built for you, put the damn petrol tank full. And if you're trying to win a race or at least get ahead of the game, then open the throttles and spend some money on fuel. You know, you may lose the race, but you're guaranteed to lose it if you run out of petrol, i.e. run out of cash, or you're not running it fast enough. So this is, by the way, not just... This is critical, actually. This is where maybe the online space and the Amazon space specifically... Okay, I'm doing well today. The Amazon space particularly differs from what most of its experience in ordinary life, right? So for years, for example, I was one of the sort of specialist musical theatre vocal coaches in the sort of Godalming, South Surrey area, right? And because there weren't a million such people around, I could afford to be, that was pretty specific and pretty niche down, right? Now I'm in London. If I want to take work off the many other expert vocal coaches, I need to be more specific about who I am. And yeah, sure, I'll get some scraps. But if I really wanted to create a business, which is something I've considered, I might even do it again one day, but I've considered building a serious business here. But if I were really serious, I'd have to specialize very specifically and just basically try and be more visible than everybody else in that niche if I really wanted to make a serious go of making proper money, not just, ticking by, a few tens of thousands a year, but, really building a business that could become hundreds of thousands or millions a year. The difference being that the real world is there's more resistance to you going to a different shop to buy stuff, or if you're selling services, people won't travel more than 100 miles. For example, people do travel to come and see the 10K Collective Mastermind, to come and see it. They come and be a member of it, I should say. They travel from Cumbria, for example, and the Scottish border, which is 200-300 miles from London. People flying from Barcelona, people flying from Amsterdam and other such places as well. But if I were just offering some mediocre mastermind that was the same as everything else, people would probably just come like 5 miles. Because there is a resistance that comes from distance, right? Online, that doesn't exist. It's a fluid marketplace. You're just one click away from anybody else. And on Amazon, you're not even a click away, right? You're just a scroll away. Because once you put your, for example, magnetic bracelets for arthritis or something into your search bar and clicked search, the search results are there, visible. And in one glance of the eye, without even moving your fingers on an iPhone screen, which is where, by the way, the majority of everything online happens now, including Amazon, or moving your mouse on a laptop, without any physical movement, you can see 6 different products lined up against each other, right? That is a profoundly competitive situation. Therefore, it is simply not any kind of business strategy at all to be mediocre, which is completely different from offline life. I can't stress enough how different it is. I will go to a local hairdresser based on the fact that they're a 5-minute walk from me and not too expensive. And I will pay a bit more money for the fact that it's convenient. If it was too much, and if they had 3 or 4 people on the high street where I used to live in Godalming, little town of 20,000 people, they had like 4 barber shops on the high street within about 10 minutes walk of each other, which was insane. And so because it was so close to each other, I would simply walk down the street to the cheapest one. So that's why I bought from there. But there was enough space to kind of support four barbers. At the 2 ends of the high street was a bit extreme, but there's enough to support a high street barber at the top end of Hampstead who's expensive, and a sort of cheap one at the other end of Hampstead, and so forth, right? But what there isn't room is there's not enough demand to support a million barbershops that are all exactly the damn same, minus tiny tweaks, all next to each other in a tiny town, right? Small demand, high competition, ain't going to work. So what is all this rant about? What it's about is simply this. Please recognize right now that there is no other viable strategy on Amazon really, other than being at least a strong player in a given market, or preferably dominating it. If you're on page 2, you're lost. If you're on page 20, you are totally dead in the water. Forget it. Therefore, you shouldn't be doing anything when you launch that does anything except increase your visibility and increase the likelihood of somebody A, clicking on your listing to get the price down and make sure the main photo looks fantastic, and B, converting it. So make sure your photos look amazing, you have good, clear text, and again, the price is really good, and preferably get some good reviews if you can influence that. Okay, so now this whole rant, by the way, Dan, if you're listening, please understand, I'm not here to get at you. I think it's, on the contrary, I like the fact you've clearly articulated your approach, which is excellent. A lot of people don't have any plan at all. They don't articulate it. They just kind of do stuff randomly. So that's really good. And the second thing you've done that's really smart is ask for feedback from some people who know what they're doing, which is 2 very, very smart things. By the way, if you want feedback on your launch strategy, obviously we can get into a lot more detail than what we talked about today. I offer that as a service now. And if you want to get that, you can go to amazingfba.com, and actually I'll bring up the URL, but it's pretty new. We've had a couple of people use it now and found it very, very helpful. It's called RARE, amazingfba.com/RARE, amazingfba.com/RARE, and that stands for Review, Analyze, Refine, Execute. All right. So basically, you're going to save yourself wasting a ton of money and time that you've invested, so much sweat to get your products made, to decide on your product, to find a supplier, to get it made, to check it, to get it inspected, to get it shipped across to Amazon, wherever that is. That is not the time to do things amateurishly. So what do? We review your market data. We'll double check the basically supply and demand, the competitive landscape. We'll also think about differentiation and design points. We'll look at review your current plans for launch, like I just have with the plan there. And then we'll lay out a basic checklist of the process that I think you should be following to get your first product launched, based not just, by the way, on my own personal launches, but on consolidating the lessons learnt from working hand in glove with members of the 10K Collective and now the £1 Million Mastermind, at the high level masterminds. And when somebody's launched 80 products in a quarter, like one of the members of masterminds, guess what? The lessons are very, very clear. So that's what I offer. If you want to check that out, amazingfba.com/RARE, RARE. If you want some free help, of course, you can get yourself over to the Facebook group. I can only give it about 10, 15 minutes of my time normally. I've given quite a big chunk of time to this one because I just thought it was a good example. So above all, I would say the final thing to say is those 2 points that we've made. That number one, you need to get a plan. And even if it's an imperfect plan, once you articulate your thoughts, you can improve on them. If you don't articulate them, don't write them down and make them clear, you will be thrashing around based in reactive mode, probably. I mean, what you'll probably be doing is doing something, then you'll be scared that you were wrong based on the fact you don't get sales that day, and then you'll up the bid, and then you'll reduce the price, and then you change everything all the time. And that comes back down to the other thing I wanted to say, which is the second point. I've got 3 points actually. The second point is that the first thing you do when you spend money in marketing, the first reward for your first $400 or $500 spent on marketing is learning, not sales normally, right? You may get sales, I'm not saying you shouldn't be going for them, but the first thing is when you enter a new market, your first few $100 are for learning. So make sure your approach is simple and consistent so you can draw robust conclusions. If it's over complex, that will blur the picture or be a waste of time or money because you won't be able to use the insights that come out of it. And worse still, if you don't have a plan at all and you just chop and change everything every single day. And look, we've all been there. I was terrible when I started out, partly because I didn't have any guidance on this really, or not very much. And I certainly didn't have a mentor at that point, which I wish I'd got. But anyway, I can't change the past, but I can change it for you, your present. But look, chopping and changing every day, it's going to happen unless you set a very clear course in which you have faith. And that brings it to the last point, which is really, it's very, very, very smart to get some feedback from other people who've been there before you, to double check that you're on the right track, you have a good plan, for two reasons. Very simply, really. So this is point 3A, I guess. You need to make sure that it's a good plan. If it's a bad plan, you're going to waste not only the money you spend on marketing, which can be a lot. If you spend $5,000 on products, you might easily spend $2,000 to $3,000, depending on how aggressive you're being on the marketing to get it launched. That includes the cost of giveaways and stuff, not purely just ad spend, but it's going to be a lot of money. And that's in addition to not wasting, say, $5,000 that you spent on a product which might sit in an Amazon shelf for 2 years, gathering dust if you go and get it selling. So that's the first thing. And then 3B, if you want, I'm afraid this is how my mind works. Point B, just as important, you must have faith in the plan you make. You've got to adjust to reality in life, but equally you've got to come up with intelligently thought through, reality-based, research-based ideas that you can then have faith in implementing. Not rigidly, but you don't want to blow with the nearest gust of wind either, right? There's a balance to be struck. You need to plow your furrow. You need to sail in one direction for at least a week, maybe two, before you then review the data and, yeah, for sure, adjust. Here's the irony, though. If you try and adjust every single day, you're no longer testing your thesis or your hypothesis or your launch strategy. You're not testing anything. You're just being blown all over the place by the winds of the marketplace. And that's never going to serve you. You won't get proper data out of it. You won't build courage. You won't be testing your ideas. Nothing good comes out of that. So the last thing to say is really, number one, get a plan. And number two, get some input on that plan. And then number three, be willing to test that plan against reality properly, meaning you adjust, but you adjust after a particular period and you only change one thing at a time. You don't change everything in a great panic. And the very last thing to say is actually what underlies all this stuff is not being intellectually clever. It's actually counterintuitive, but it's an emotional intelligence thing. If you have the courage to be simple, then you'll get wisdom from the marketplace, because the marketplace will tell you if you don't change anything except the price, and you lower the price and sales go up, and you raise the price and sales go down, you don't change anything else, and you give it several days or longer at each price point, guess what? The market's spoken to you and you're gaining true wisdom, not through trying to be sophisticated and clever, but being very simple, but real. So the only way to get real marketplace feedback is to change very few things at a time and let the marketplace tell you in response to your simple changes what the reality of your product and market is, right? And I say this with full conviction, not based just on myself, but the people who've absolutely killed it over December 2018 in my masterminds. Absolutely crystal clear that they have very robust, simple launch strategy, which you could put in a nutshell, put your price low, market high, and then gradually adjust. Now, if you've misread the market or your product's mediocre or you're trying to dominate a market that you just can't get into, that's a positioning error and it's just never going to happen anyway. But assuming that you get the positioning right, which is a question of your market research first, your niche research, which is what I teach, niche source launch. If you've got the niche research right, then your launch should be very aggressive and pretty simple. And I know so many otherwise very smart people over the Q4 run up to Christmas in 2018 in September, October, November, December, trying lots of very, very sophisticated, clever strategies. And they really weren't working very well for ranking. Now, it's not because those people are dumb. They were experimenting. They were trying stuff out and they were willing to test. And you know what? They were willing, to be honest, look the results in the face and go, you know what? This isn't working. But it's very interesting to me that the person with the biggest, cojones, the strongest courage, not foolish, but just courageous, based on research, based on a lot of data, and but nevertheless had the courage of his convictions, put products out there based on good research, but stuck to very simple strategies. That is the way forward. And the flip side of that, what I see with people, I've had 3 PhDs at one point in the beginner mastermind, which I no longer run. None of them got a product off the ground. They were they were lovely people, by the way, and they also had very, very good analytical brains, PhD. But that didn't translate into commercial success. And when I see somebody come with a pie chart, one of the people with PhDs, and it was beautifully presented, but when I see over sophistication now, and I see it in myself very clearly, I know what I'm like as well. But when I see over sophistication intellectually in response to a practical question like, how do I make a product sell? I know that that is a sort of very sophisticated expression of fear, and fear of losing money, and fear of being wrong, and feeling stupid, and feeling like I'm no good at business, or whatever you may feel. And guess what? Everybody feels that sort of stuff at some level, sooner or later. But the difference between the people who do well and they don't is not the intellectual sophistication of their campaigns. There is no magic bullet. There are good practices and good principles and bad ones. Don't get me wrong. And from a strategic point of view, if you want a magic bullet, that answer is, what is the magic bullet? The STAR principle, period. Go listen to the podcast about it. I think it's amazingfba.com/303. Go buy the book by Richard Koch. So that is the only magic bullet I know from the strategic point of view. Everything else is tactics, really. And above all, courage means you keep it simple and you hold your course for a certain amount of time. Not forever, because that's just stubbornness and stupidity. But you don't kind of wave in the winds of the market and panic either. You just go, I believe, based on my research, and work with a mentor or mastermind group or whatever input you've had, that this should work. I'm going to try it for XYZ period of time for ABC amount of budget, and then I will adjust this one thing, and then I'll see how that goes. And if that doesn't work, I'm going to adjust this other one thing. That works every time. I mean, it doesn't guarantee that you will have a successful product if you've got your judgments wrong, but it does mean over time that if you have some break-even products, you have some break-even products. But if you keep going and you work that way, you will get success. And I've seen that time and time again. And to the extent that I've managed to do that myself, less effectively, I've never made £1 million in e-commerce, never mind in 1 month. And my total earnings with my business partners probably topped to about $250,000 or something. But even so, when I've got it right in that direction, more by luck than judgment, sometimes I've got a great result. So even little on me's find that, but certainly the biggest and most powerful sellers that are growing and enjoying it and enjoying the confidence that come from that have that approach. So I think that behind this more sort of tactical question lies a very important mindset question, actually. And I'm very, very glad, Dan, that you asked the question. Very good question to ask. If you have questions like that you want to ask, then go to the Facebook group. Try and keep them a bit simpler in most cases. I mean, you're more likely to get a response from me if you keep it simpler and shorter. But yeah, interesting stuff. I mean, one of the interesting things to say, finally, very final thing to say is, look, enjoy the game. This is intellectually stimulating stuff. I could right now probably be getting more secure income and possibly a bit more money, certainly in the realm of coaching and teaching, by just teaching somebody right now beginner piano, which is not intellectually challenging. It's very easy for me. It's very musically easy. It just means I'm grinding my teeth because I'm bored. But guess what? This stuff is challenging. It's your own money at stake. It's a dynamic marketplace. It's tricky. It's challenging. And you've got to enjoy that. I mean, I enjoy this challenge. I like the intellectual challenge. I like the fact that it challenges my courage as well. So enjoy the game, folks. And again, I can't stress enough, the people that I know that are really killing it, that's an end result that's come from them doing a lot of hard work, and they've got in there and they've worked hard because they're not just driven by the money. That's a way of measuring success, but they're driven by enjoying the game, the competition, you know, and that is really another big mindset thing. So in a way, none of this stuff is new. I'm not saying anything radical and new, but what's interesting is this stuff comes now. I'm really observing a lot of, behavior of entrepreneurs and wantrepreneurs and future entrepreneurs. And there's some very clear differences between them. And it's mostly not tactics. I mean, tactics are important, but they're not hard to find. It really comes down to the right mentality and then sticking to what you believe. So thanks for listening. I hope this was helpful. If you want to check out the original Facebook post, go to amazingfba.com/FB. F for Freddie, B for Bertie. If you want to work with me to check your own launch plan is in good shape, go to amazingfba.com/rare, RARE. If you're UK based, it's about, I think it's, let me double check how much it is. I'm offering that for, drum roll please, what's the price? £147, $190. And that includes me sending you a review sheet for you to go through as well. So I think it's pretty good value. If you're about to launch and waste thousands of dollars, spending $190 to make sure you don't do that, I think is excellent value for money. People have certainly been very grateful for my work. And the last guy I helped with this had a massive Q4 win with his first new product. So I think we really changed that around for him because he had a, frankly, bit of a disastrous launch going on. So this is where I can really change things around for you. Up to you. Facebook group's free. Rare is a little bit of money either which way. Delighted to help you. Hopefully this has been helpful to you as well. This is Michael Veazey signing off from another episode of Amazing FBA. Thanks for listening.